Well, welcome to the Go Your Way podcast. I'm Greg Neerman, joined again by Phoebe Go. And Phoebe, every time I hear that intro, it's starting to grow on me a little bit. I feel like tap dancing in my chair.
Oh, Greg, yeah, you should be dancing just all the time. I'm so glad welcome to 2021. We're here. We made it.
Yeah,
We're
and you
through this.
mentioned 2021, but as we think about how much the world has changed technology-wise across 2020, and particularly around data protection, it's had such an impact. And I'm looking forward to this conversation to talk about that impact, but also about how hybrid cloud has changed the data protection landscape as well, especially the quick adoption and the growth of hybrid cloud really has caused us to think about this much more dynamically.
I'll say what's really funny about 2020 is that nobody really just said, oh, we're thinking about cloud. It became like, well, we've got to because everybody is all over the place. Our offices are all closed. We're all working from home. We've got to use the cloud. And so hybrid cloud kind of just became the de facto how we did business. And so I think now people have settled a little bit and now they're thinking about the other end of that stick, which is how do we help optimize cost in that space? And I think having that conversation today will be really fun because my thing is always about how do we make our developers happier and how do we get more cool applications out there? So how do we do both those things at the same time? Can we? Is it possible? Let's see what happens, especially when there are all these malicious actors out there trying to steal our data. So that is a really good intro to our very special guest today, Greg. I'm so glad she could join us after a long and exciting and amazing trek in the mountains. Our guest today is Penny Greliski of Commvault. Hey, Penny.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here today.
And it's great having you, Penny. And the timing is really good. You know, as we talked about the role that data protection is playing, especially in these rapidly changing environments, not just in the physical world, but in the technology world too. And I guess we talked about the impact of 2020. And some of it's real obvious, some of it not so obvious. What are some of your impressions of the impact that data protection has had in 2020?
Well, thank you for asking that because it's one of the fun parts of my job to survey our customers and find out what is happening out there in their environment. You know, we have a lot of conversations with customers, what's changing in enterprise IT, but every 6 months I get to do a big survey and ask customers what's really happening. And often people are much more honest in the survey than they would be in a face-to-face live conversation. So it's interesting. One of the things that we've seen that's changed a lot is the attention to disaster recovery. We asked the customers, what are your top 5 priorities through this pandemic? And as the pandemic kind of ebbs and flows here, how have things changed? And what's interesting is that when I surveyed customers in May of 2020, disaster recovery preparedness was their number 1 answer. And when I surveyed in October, even more. And now disaster recovery is still number 1, but it's like 11 percentage points higher than it was last year. So I think 2020 was a risky year for a lot of people. We looked at risk. We looked at the risk of baking our own bread. We looked at the risk of growing our own garden. But there were a lot of business risks that came up. And I think just the challenges with natural disasters and all the things that happened last year really gave people a chance to say, wait, I should really think about my recovery plan. Maybe my data protection is a lot more important than I thought it was in years past.
Right. And what did right. And what was the I think you mentioned, you know, the pandemic and people having that concern about data disaster recovery and being able to not only say, oh, I have another copy somewhere, but actually start using it in that event. Were there any other concerns? I think that's probably speed of being able to access their data, being able to continue business. But are there other things that you think were really top of mind during 2020 that maybe weren't so prominent previously?
Well, I think one of the things that happened in 2020, and we see it happening right now, is the talent war too. So how do I recover my data and recover my data while this guy is home with his kids or this person is off on vacation? How do I automate things? Because, you know, everyone was asked to do so much more in 2020, and that that hasn't slowed down. No one has said, oh, it's so much easier than it was last year. No, no one's saying that. So everyone is really thinking, how do I automate things? How do I simplify things? And how can I really get control of this? Just like we all cleaned our closets in 2020 and said, why do I have all this in my house? People are looking at their IT environment and saying, okay, should we start to rationalize applications? Should we start to rationalize data protection systems? A lot of people have some old legacy point backup systems laying around. And now is the time that they're looking at this saying, it was really hard to manage that with the staff we had. There's a talent war on right now. Can I do more and continue to innovate and manage all my data management needs with an automated system with doing less? And that's the big thing. How do we accomplish everything we want to accomplish and continue to innovate while also only working a set number of hours each week?
I think you bring up a really interesting point there. A lot of times we think about data protection in terms of technology, but you bring up the human element to this, the actually human resources and the impact on your teams and their productivity, and let's call it what it is, their satisfaction with their role in the job that they're doing, and how that technology, how we adapt that technology impacts it. Really critically important element that you don't always see on an RFP.
Right, exactly. And think about your employee happiness, but also think about your talent management going forward. Are you happy with the employee that's like, I'm going to keep this, old system around because I know how to use it? Or do you want the employees that are like, if we innovate, if we consolidate, we could get XYZ done as well? So you want those employees that are really thinking strategically. And that's one of the things we've heard from our partners as well. They're having conversations with people that say, okay, we made it through 2020. Now we're trying to recover and we're trying to innovate for the future. We can't just stay stagnant. We have to plan 1, 2, 3 years in advance. How can we get there? How can we manage our data strategy to get where we want to go in the future?
Right. And as somebody who used to manage a legacy backup system and knowing that there are still so many of them around, I personally am really excited to see how customers are using the cloud, and organizations are using one or multiple clouds in order to innovate something that seems so kind of mundane, like I guess like data protection. So how does hybrid cloud, in your experience, how has that changed the data protection landscape and the way that we're implementing data protection solutions?
Right. Well, it's funny when you listen to the earnings calls from all the major cloud vendors for, the last 4 or 5 quarters, they all talk about this rapid cloud adoption and how great it is. And for the people that have to manage it, the IT administrators, the people who are managing that rapid cloud adoption, it wasn't so great. It was a lot to figure out really quickly. So now people are kind of taking a breath and saying, are we doing the right things? And what they're finding is a little bit of sticker shock. Maybe they moved a lot to the cloud, but didn't think about what storage level it was in. Maybe they really made some mistakes along the way, and now is the time to go fix them. And one of the things that we're seeing is people thought free backup was going to be okay. I'll just use whatever comes with my cloud vendor. And now they're getting a little stuck. They're finding that they don't really have the recovery they thought they had. They're going back and fixing it. And it's a question we get all the time. Can I just use the free backup from the cloud vendors? And it's an interesting conversation. And I've worked with our product management and our CTO office to put together like 10 reasons why you really shouldn't use free backup if you're in an enterprise environment. So we're talking a lot with people about what happened and how to triage now so that there can be innovation going forward. There's a lot out there.
It really is about data management. And I think that's part of the critical element here, right? Using some of those default tools, you lose some of that management control. And also there's so many issues, especially if you look globally and at a regional level, of control of data and where that data is going and how you manage it. But we've also got this I wouldn't call it an emerging challenge, but certainly an emerging consideration with the role of hybrid cloud and how hybrid cloud has changed the data protection landscape.
Definitely. Some people want to keep things at the edge. They want to keep things local. They are comfortable with cloud for some aspects, but not all of them. And I think it's interesting too, how much people have adopted some services and then forgot to include those in their backup and recovery strategy. So we saw a lot of innovation in 2020 with services like Azure Cosmos DB or Amazon Redshift, Google SQL. We saw a lot of people using these really powerful services in the cloud to do innovative projects, to improve their retail delivery, to find innovations in medicine, to better serve customers and have a competitive advantage. Those database as a service products also need backup and recovery. We saw a lot of people innovate with SaaS applications and really decide that when everyone's working remote, now's the time to go SaaS. Now we're going to implement SAP HANA. Now we're going to get Microsoft Dynamics going. All of those things also need backup and recovery. And those are the conversations we're having now with people to say, you moved quickly. Let's make sure everything's covered. And guess what? You can manage all of that from a single dashboard. You can manage everything from one place. You can back up to the cloud, back up from the cloud, back up in the cloud. There's this flexibility that wasn't really on the radar before. So now is a great time to have those conversations and say, what would you be doing to kind of clean up your environment and potentially save some time and money at the same time?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, like with the DB as a service offerings. I mean, they're part of a solution. Like a lot of the time when you're moving to a cloud native way of architecting your application, it's not just one service you're trying to protect. You've got to really look at it as a whole, as a whole solution or a whole workload. And you've got to have the right levels of protection at all of those layers of that stack. So I think that's a really good point. But it's really exciting to see that amount of innovation happening, maybe as a result of the pandemic and everybody kind of being forced to, but also because there's just such great technologies coming out from the cloud providers that we can start to leverage at little or no cost. So the innovation, I think, is what I was really, really interested in. But the other side of that is the cost of innovating really fast, and the fact that when you do start to throw everything into the cloud and seeing what works and what's cool and what fits your business, that it starts to get a little bit expensive. So how do you innovate while reducing costs? What are you seeing customers doing, and what are you doing at Commvault to help?
Well, that's a great question, because everybody sees the number of the percentage of cloud adoption going up, but the IT budgets aren't necessarily going up with that. So, all these amazing services cost some money. So people are looking at how can we find those cost savings? Could we look at a better storage class? Can we change the way that we're doing disaster recovery? Can we look at things like auto scaling in the cloud, using the cloud when I need it, scaling it down for recovery when I don't need it? Instead of having storage just sitting there waiting, what if I could burst what I need and then reduce it? We also are seeing people really start to understand that they can automate things like, if you move backups to the cloud and they have an SLA that they need to be in pretty warm storage for 3 years, but then they can move down to colder storage later on. That cold storage is so inexpensive now. Don't forget to move things there. So there's a lot of automated processes that can help you maintain your SLAs without having to constantly, double check, like, is today the day it needs to move? What is it that I need to be doing? Automate all that so you can get a vacation and spend time with your family and really enjoy what's going on.
Absolutely. And Penny, we talked about the innovation that we see our users and customers experiencing going through it. There's also the element and the cost optimization that comes with that. There's also the element of the innovation taking place between the co-development and co-innovation between NetApp and Commvault, which is also very exciting. And I think it gives us mutually new opportunities to extract more value out of these technologies with our customers.
Absolutely. And it's simple, right? Everything is integrated. So you can be in the Commvault interface and managing all of your resources and understand, everything in your wall-to-wall NetApp environment from the Commvault interface. You can understand what's happening. And I think that the innovation relationship is so important to deliver those day one support to deliver what customers need when they need it. And I know there's a lot of conversations, and we always welcome more conversations with customers sharing, here's what I'm thinking about, here's what I'd like to see, how do we innovate toward that? And it's really listening to customers to help us develop the solutions that they need.
I think it's really nice to see that customer-centric view coming from all over the world and through our partnerships, and just saying, well, what does the customer really need to do? Things like data protection used to be selling an insurance policy and selling something, oh, you need this because if you don't back it up and something happens, but now it's actually, we're going to help you innovate. We're going to help you automate all of that so you don't have to worry about it. And I think that's a huge value add for the customers.
Right. And it's funny because people used to think about data protection as an insurance policy, just like you said. But now people are getting the question from the C-level executives: can we recover? What can we recover? How quickly can we recover? And one of the things we were just talking about this morning was the ability for our customers to just check the mobile app. Commvault's had a mobile app for a while. But if you want to go out hiking with your family, go on a mountain vacation like I just did, can you just check your phone to make sure that your backups worked? And Commvault will give you that dashboard to show you, what's happening in your environment. Did your backups work? You see this information from wherever you are, which is a huge change from people who've been using kind of legacy systems. Oh, I have to go to the office, or I have to get into my machine, go through all the protocols. Having it on your phone is just the way that we all work in 2021.
Oh, I am such a fan of mobile apps. We have one too. I don't know, Greg, have you played with the Active IQ mobile app? It's so slick. Anyway, sorry, that's my sidebar.
Pull it up here, yes.
Well, same thing, right? Like, it's being able to see your entire estate wherever you are, especially if you are working from home and you don't want to go into your office and leave your dog in the kitchen ripping things up like maybe mine is right now. But you mentioned something really interesting there, Penny, about like how CIOs, CTOs are starting to ask, do these kind of more pointy questions when it comes to disaster recovery and data protection. What are some of those more modern threats? I know that's why they're asking, is because there's more concerns out there about our data and what's going on with our business. What are some of those modern threats to data, and what are some ways you're seeing customers handling them?
Well, and definitely we talked about disaster recovery and the natural disasters. There's also things that are somewhat uncontrollable, like power outages. We've seen a lot of people, just having some basic infrastructure issues, but the headline that everyone sees is ransomware. It's on, the national news every day. We're seeing ransomware headlines all the time. And that's really the risk that the board is talking about. Your enterprise data is so important to you and your customers and your competitive advantage. And it's something that at a government level around the world, everyone's talking about, how do we protect from ransomware and what do we do? Just this morning, we were doing a demo with how you can verify your immutable backups with Commvault and actually prove, look, here's a backup, it's encrypted, it can't be hit. It's just a constant headline about ransomware and what's happening. And I love hearing our customers tell us their stories of, yes, we were hit, this was shut down, here's how quickly we were able to recover with Commvault. Here's what we did, here's the steps that we followed. Our customers tell these amazing stories because we all know, we hear it all the time, it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. But what our customers say is, yeah, it happened, and here's what I did to recover. And they're just so confident. It's amazing to hear their confidence and know that they can get back what they need, as long as they're backing it all up, as long as they're backing up those database as a service technologies we talked about. Endpoints became a big talking point in 2020 and 2021. When everyone shifted to the work from home, that started a conversation about endpoint management.
It absolutely did. I'm just curious. We're in the home stretch here. We're going to wrap up here shortly, Penny. But I want to ask you, as far as the process as you work with users, as we work with our users, the backup is one piece of this. The other piece of this is the habits and practices of testing your environment and testing the resiliency of your environment. Can you give us kind of just a real quick, short look at what that looks like and the guidance that you're giving your users?
Absolutely. Well, the number one guidance is to test because nobody likes to do it, right? Everyone kind of groans like, oh, we have a recovery exercise coming up. It shouldn't be that way. And, in fact, when we talk with our customers about it, they're like, yeah, we did it. It's scheduled. Everything works. Or we found exactly what we needed to fix. So I think there's a lot of services available, both from our channel partners. We have Commvault Recovery Services. We can really help people design tests and understand, do you have everything set up in place, should something happen? And it's interesting that I would love to do more surveys to ask people how often you're testing, how you feel about your testing. It's something that I think the attitudes are changing, especially now people are doing it remotely. You don't have to have everyone in the office on a Saturday. You're doing it at home on a Saturday, or just making it happen because we're all remote now.
Well, if
Yeah, and
there's
it
one
really-
lesson out of this, it's if you're not testing, you're not doing your job. And let's just be honest about that.
Right. Backup is important. Recovery is most important. Yeah.
I don't know how you go to sleep without having testing being an integral part of this. But this is really fantastic, Penny. So great to have you on. Really great insights. But we can't let you go without you sharing with us, how can people follow you socially? How can they follow up? How can they get more information?
Sure. So I'm at Virtual Penny on all the popular social media. So I, would always be happy to follow up with more questions. And also there's more information at commvault.com/NetApp.
Fantastic. And Phoebe, we've also got a link at the bottom. People can go ahead and follow for more information as well. Thank you so much, Penny.
Thanks, Penny.
Us. This is really
Thank
great.
you.
As always, it is so fantastic to catch up with our channel and our partners ecosystem. It's so great, Greg.
It is. And again, there's just basic elements, and we covered a little bit of that toward the end there about testing your environment and being able to have the tools to adequately test that. It's one of those things. I think a lot of people think they've got their processes in place and they believe that they've done enough. And but I do hear anecdotal stories of people coming up short on the testing. So that's the one takeaway I'm taking from this.
Yeah, she talked about automation, and I mean that's obviously very close to my heart. And just being able to automate spinning up your DR environments, not touching your production, but just having it there, something I've seen our customers do time and time again with great success. And now it's automated, it's version controlled. You can go through what that's going to actually run. You can then go and run it in a test environment. You've got your backup there, make sure that your data's safe and you've got access to everything. I think those are some of those really neat automation integrations that we have with our partners like Commvault. So anyway, I think that's a really good one to end it on. So thanks so much, Greg. That was a fun one today.
It was. Thank you, Phoebe. I just want to remind everybody, we've got a whole series of these videos. So go back to the source of the videos and watch the entire series. Lots of great content, lots of great learnings for us and from the partners we've talked to. So thank you so much for everybody for joining us, and we'll see everybody on the next episode.
See you next time.